Hello and welcome back to another episode of Brighter Retirement Radio. I'm your host, Devin Peterson, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about staying sharp and staying active in retirement. I cannot think of a better guest to invite on our show to have the conversation about this topic. Our guest today is Lorraine Ladish. Lorraine is a bilingual author of 18 books, an author, a writer, a speaker, a yogini, and the creator of Viva 50 Media, which creates body, mind, and soul content for those in midlife. So in today's episode, I had the opportunity to talk to Lorraine about physical and mental health tips that help us to stay strong and stay sharp in retirement. And her responses might just shock you. She has a little bit of a tough love, a super optimistic personality, and a lot of energy. Of course, it's not a secret that an important ingredient to your happiness is your health and your ability to live life to its fullness. Now, within this episode, we're going to talk about how many retirees initially struggle to find the love for working out and staying active. And she shares her perspective on how to find that love, and then a hard stance to realize or mental shift to have if you can't initially find that love. Also, we'll talk about how mental illness and disease is becoming a commonplace in our society, and we'll discuss how we can control and what we can do to stay sharp mentally. All right, without further ado, I'm excited to introduce you to my guest, Lorraine, and have this conversation. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Retirement Radio. I'm your host, Devin Peterson, and I'm so excited to introduce my guest to you today, Lorraine Ladish. Lorraine, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Uniquely in today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about physical health and mental health. I know many of you follow this podcast because of the financial aspect of it, but we absolutely believe that to find a brighter retirement, you need the components of physical and mental health. And so that's exactly why I reached out to Lorraine. Lorraine is a bilingual author and editor for Viva50.com, and quite honestly, a guru at many things. Would you agree, Lorraine?
I don't know. I think I'm just a guru at living life, really.
That is a great thing to be a guru in, and you'll definitely own that.
No,
that's
not
a great
even
title.
A guru. I think it's just like we all do this. We do it in different ways. We do what we can, and we can never control what other people see about us. So.
Sure, fair enough. That's a humble approach. Thank you. But really, our focus here today, like I mentioned, is a few tips to stay sharp, stay active, and stay connected in retirement. And so, primarily, we want to focus on two specific topics, which is just the physical health and mental health as we approach retirement. So this could be in your 50s, your 60s, or your 70s. Both of these aspects of health, I believe, are so impactful that enable us or mobilize us or empower us to really enjoy our life around us. So, Lorraine, let's kind of start with the physical aspect of physical health. As you really are in this age demographic yourself, but also really are a part of helping other people around you maximize their physical health or improve their physical health. What are a few tips that you feel like that we all need to hear to make sure we find that healthy space?
So I'm 56 years old, hopefully turning 57 in August. And I feel that I am in, I don't know if the best physical and mental shape in my life, but close. And when I was really young, of course, I thought that 50 some or 30 some was really old. And then now that I'm in this space, I look around me and I see that it's not about looking a certain way when you're a certain age. It's about feeling a certain way, whether you're 20, whether you're 30, 40, 50, 60, or 80. And I've been lucky to have grandparents, a father that were intellectuals, creatives, just as I am. But they also took care of their health, and they always made sure they were moving. I started running with my dad when I was a teenager. I was 13, and my dad, I think, was in his 30s. And so, my dad's now 81 and he continues to be mobile. He's still mentally active. He's still writing. He's still doing. And for me, I feel that the physical part of it is about being mobile and being able to enjoy life. So I work out every day, and I've done that from a very young age. And I did it for mental health reasons, mainly because I feel that I was possibly born with this chemical imbalance, and I've dealt with depression and anxiety most of my life, and a long eating disorder when I was younger. But medication helped to a certain extent. And then there was also the part where I realized that by keeping myself active, I felt so much better, and I felt powerful. I felt that I could deal with anything life brought my way, and it has helped me overcome a number of obstacles in life. Now, at this age, I am super grateful that I can prevent a fall. Something as simple as that. I recently, several times, tripped over something, and I stumbled and I recovered. And for somebody who doesn't have balance, like I practice yoga daily, maybe they don't have that balance. Maybe they don't have the reflexes to do that because they're not used to moving. They could have fallen. I could have fallen and broken an arm or whatever, And then there's the aspect of prevention. For example, in women, like I really would have all the risks to have osteopenia or osteoporosis at 56, and I have neither. I am thin. I have small bones. I had an eating disorder, and I'm postmenopausal at this point. And yet my bone density is great. But I believe that aside from perhaps good genes, it also has to do with the fact that I do weight-bearing exercises every day. And I do them outdoors, which is a good source of vitamin D. So again, it's not about just that moment of exercising. It's that I have a teenage daughter, and I can go run with her. I can play with her. I can enjoy life without feeling limited.
Right. Yeah. Staying on top of your physical health absolutely affects many aspects of your life, right? It's just not only about looking good in your midlife years, but it's also about being able to accomplish all the other tasks that you want. You mentioned family, you mentioned prevention and mobility. All of these wouldn't really happen without physical health. So let's maybe kind of start with what you'd mentioned, that you're in the best, almost the best or best shape of your life to this point, and you said you're 56. I've actually heard you say before in your blog that the 50s are not the new 30s. The 50s are your 50s, right? So
yeah,
with physical health, what do you mean by that?
I mean that, of course, there are changes that do happen with age. Like menopause happens. Like if I wanted to have another baby at 56, that would be ludicrous. There are things that are true. It's not if I were 30, I could have another baby. But this is the part that I don't agree with when people say that. Statistically, I'm more likely to die in 20 years than I was at 20 and things like that. But it also means that, of course, there's wear and tear on the body. My body at 56 is not what it was at 20. So if I abused it in any way, as many of us have done when we were younger, the recovery is shorter. And when you do that when you're older, it really isn't as fast in many ways. And I mean, like, by not even just abusing it in a bad way, but a run. Like I injured myself in a half marathon at 48, and I had to give up running for a little bit. I'm back at it. But the point being that there is this awareness that I have of, let me not do something really ridiculous to put myself in danger just to show that I can do X, Y, Z at 56.
To try to act younger. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I try to take care of myself, but I also am more cognizant of, hey, if I fall, I used to rollerblade. I don't do it as much because why? But that's me. If somebody else enjoys rollerblading, they should. I enjoy dancing more, I enjoy yoga, I enjoy running. But again, it's being aware, like I have to warm up more than I used to because when I was younger, you could, and I had millions of injuries when I was younger also because I would push myself and you think that you're invincible and all this stuff. Possibly one of the best things of being older is hopefully that wisdom, which is acquired usually through trial and error and making a bunch of mistakes. And then, like, you know, I've thrown my back out. I've had slipped discs, tendonitis, a number of things. But now I am aware of that, so you won't find me twisting to grab the toilet roll, because that's how I'm more likely to throw out my back doing that than in a crazy yoga pose.
Oh, okay. So thank you for kind of explaining that, because it's good for us to be aware of where we're at, right? So I wanted to kind of get that out of the way, right? Us talking about physical health does not mean that we need to pretend that our bodies are like they were when you're 30s.
I certainly don't.
But for you, and to kind of share this with our listeners, what are you doing every day to stay healthy and stay active?
What am I not doing, I think? So I just love movement, because it honestly, for me, it's always been like running, and it doesn't have to be running. It could be walking, it could be swimming, it could be dancing. I personally practice now yoga. I still dance. I do HIIT and cardio. HIIT is high intensity interval training. I do a little bit of boxing, and I don't know, it depends on the day. And the good thing is that since I've been working out since I was a kid, I've come to this moment where I'm like, what do I want to do today? Not what do I have to do? What do I feel like doing? And sometimes it's a run. Other times I need yoga. Other times, so when you become so in tune with it, it's just like when you're you're going to eat, normally you're like, what am I going to eat? You don't say, should I eat?
That's right. I love that analogy. I love that, Lorraine. Thank you.
I just thought of it, but you don't think, what are you going to eat? You don't think, are you going to eat? You know you're going to eat because you need it. Well, when you get used to exercising, and now, of course, I know that I'm an anomaly. I'm acutely aware of that. And most people are not addicted to exercise. And I'm not addicted in the sense that I'm working out all day. I don't. Maybe someday I'll devote half an hour, as little as that. Other days it's an hour. Maybe a day it'll be 2 hours. It depends. But the point is that I took, and talking about mental health, I took an addictive personality that I knew I had, and I focus it into work, producing content, writing books, or creating content online, and sports. Those are my two ways of channeling that.
So what do you say to someone who doesn't like working out, right? Because I love your analogy of, you're going to eat, now it's just a matter of what you're going to eat. But what if someone says, like, I don't want to eat, meaning like, I don't feel like working out, like it hurts, or I don't like it. Like, what do you, any insight for those?
So there's several things. There's, for example, I'll give a simple example, and close to me is my husband. We've been together for 11 years. And so we were both in our 40s, met, and now we're in our 50s. And he, unlike me, like, I love exercising. He dislikes it with a passion.
Okay. All right.
And at this stage in life, I understand that I cannot make anybody do what they don't want to do. But because he understood that in 10 years, or by watching his father lose mobility later in life, because he was not an active person from a certain age, he does not want that to happen to him. So he went to the gym, and now that we aren't going to the gym, well, he works out in the backyard, and he does maybe not what I do, but maybe he does 10 minutes, maybe he does 15, maybe 5, but it's something. So I feel that people who don't enjoy exercising is usually either because they have not found something they love, and they think of exercise as this structured thing that they need to do, like you have to do push-ups, and I enjoy all that, but you don't need to do that. You just need to, again, garden or walk, or play pickleball, that a lot of people are playing now. It's a fun game that I discovered relatively recently. So it's something that bowling, I don't know, something that you don't consider exercise. Line dancing. Line dancing is something that I've gone to do, and I see people that are 80, 90, maybe they're line dancing alongside the 20-year-olds.
Uh-huh.
So there are things that everybody can do that are fun and that don't have to be that kind of structured, boring exercise that you feel like you're in some kind of torture chamber.
So if someone doesn't like exercising, your advice is find something that lights you up. Find something that you can enjoy.
Yes. And maybe it'll take a long time. Maybe you have to try 50 things.
Right. And I'm glad that you added that footnote into that comment because a lot of people I think that I talk to, they're like, well, walking around the block or running or maybe going to the gym and lifting weights is in their mind the only thing that they've explored, and they've tried it. They've kind of checked it off their list and said, I don't like it. My list is all over. I guess I just don't like working out at all. But what I like about what you're saying is you're saying there's so many ways to think outside of the box, to be active. And then even then you might not completely love it until you really get into it. And that might take weeks, months, maybe years, but finding something that you love and can get into that habitual space is important.
The thing too, though, is that I don't think anybody likes taking medication. And this is something that I discussed with my husband. And for me, when I work out, I also think about, well, the energy and the time that I'm putting into this is energy, time, and money that I'm not going to be putting into medication, and because like you're working out and you're lowering your blood pressure, so you don't have to take blood pressure medication. You don't have to go to the doctor, which is no fun. And, all these different things that together combine, I guess that's not enough, because if people knew that, and everybody would be exercising and they'd be, we all feel great. We don't have diabetes. We don't have high blood pressure, heart conditions, and stuff like that. Stress, for example, exercise is a huge stress reliever, and it is a saver of hearts. My dad had 5 or 6 years ago, he had a quadruple coronary bypass.
My goodness.
He would not have survived that if he had not been in good shape. And the doctor told him that. And so he was so happy but that didn't prevent him from having the issue, because it was atherosclerosis. It wasn't a heart attack. But the point being that if there are things that we can control about aging and about illness, there are things we cannot. That's kind of seems like I had a close brush with colon cancer, and I did not see that coming. I take care of myself, and I thought, wow, if that can happen to me or my best friends. I've lost 3 friends to cancer in the past year and a half. But the point being that if we take care of ourselves, if we get ill, then we have higher chances of recovering. And your immune system is stronger and all this. So the thing about enjoying or not enjoying exercise is that sometimes we do things that we don't enjoy. Sometimes people are stuck when we're younger at jobs that maybe we didn't like, but you stuck it out because you thought, that's not my case, fortunately. Maybe you just held there because you knew that you had to feed your kids, or because you hoped for a better tomorrow, or whatever. So it's this delayed gratification, because why does everything have to always be fun? Nothing is always fun. Like, I love my work. I love what I do. I love communicating. I love writing books. But there are parts of it that I don't like, of course. And, so the point is that there are going to be things. What are we, little children? Toddlers need everything to be fun. Right. But when we are of a certain age, I feel that we need to be wise enough to say, wait a minute, what kind of an attitude am I having that everything has to be fun?
Yeah, I like that. It's not too brash. It's not too hard. I think that's honest. I like a lot of what you said, because I think we all default back to, we do the things which we enjoy, which of course is desirable. We'd all love to be there. But there are some essentials that even if you don't enjoy working out, do it. That's the sweet and the short of it. Even if you don't enjoy it wholeheartedly, you're not addicted to it, it's not so second nature,
Right.
just do it. Put it on your
Well,
calendar and get
not
out and do
only
something.
that, but there's another thing that I've noticed. I was a fitness instructor for 15 years when I was younger, and I'm back teaching yoga now. And I've noticed the following is that most people, the reason why they don't like a certain activity is because it's hard and it's feeling painful at that moment and all that. But here's the thing. When I started running, and I was very young, but I hated it. I couldn't breathe, everything hurt. And I was this person who wasn't even 20.
Yeah.
But then when I learned breathing techniques, when I learned that I didn't have to sprint, that this was a long and steady thing and this and that and the other, I became more efficient at doing it. My body became more efficient. And then I started enjoying it because that's where I entered that flow where I could actually do it and then maybe listen to music or meditate or maybe run with my father and have a conversation. And so it became something kind of social and something that connected me to a different person, which is my father. And so it became a very important thing. And now I run with my kids. So another thing I disliked very much was any kind of abdominal work, core and push-ups and stuff like that. And now it turns out that because I have trained long enough and smart enough, which is better than training smart is better than training hard, is finding the exercise that really is good for you and then doing it precisely and for a certain amount of time instead of just I think you have to do it for hours, is that now that I'm strong, it's easy. And then it becomes pleasurable because when things are hard, but there's always that curve. The learning curve whenever you've learned something new and it seems like, oh no, I am never going to do this. I will never, your first job, your first anything. It seems like the first time you have a baby, you think you're not going to be able to do it, but then it becomes easy and then you have another baby and it's super easy. And then,
Yeah. So there's definitely a learned component to that for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
On the physical. Well, I appreciate your insight on the mental health, the physical health aspect of that. I would love to make a segue to the mental health, because I know for our audience, those what I affectionately call charitable boomers, right? Those folks moving into and through retirement, needing to stay sharp mentally is so important. A lot of those listening to this podcast have a spouse or a parent or a sibling that has dementia or Alzheimer's or some sort of cognitive impairment, memory loss. And that's very relevant. That's very prevalent in our culture in our midlife years. So I'd love to talk a little bit with you, Lorraine, about mental health, how we can really get an edge on that and a few tips around making sure we maintain some mental health. Any insight there?
Sure. We were talking about, how a lot of articles for older people they tell you to do crossword puzzles on Sudoku, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, or stuff like that, right? Yeah. And there are other things that one can do, like learn a new language or learn social media, learn a new skill. I taught myself how to touch type when I was in my 30s after a whole lifetime of looking at the keyboard. And that was it just learning a new dancing, even because you have to remember the steps, it's a physical activity, but it's also mental because you have to remember that, like anything that is going to be, affect your coordination or moving one side of your body, a different side of your body, a different way, solving problems, again, learning languages, staying updated with younger people and communicating with younger people so you understand what's relevant in the current culture, I think is really important as well, because I feel that as, we grow older, we still need to be in touch with the whole community. And I do vlogs on YouTube, which are video blogs. And in one of them, there is one that is about fear of aging. And I always thought that the people who would respond to that would be older people. And it's not so. It is younger people who are already afraid of getting older and not being relevant when they are older. So then I was saying, hey, go to my Instagram page where I post my yoga photos and, everything I'm doing. And I'm 57 and almost, and I feel more relevant than ever. And I don't even think I've peaked. And my father, 81, is relevant. My grandfather died writing. I mean, not literally. He wasn't writing when he died, but it's having that sense of let me learn something new. Let me challenge myself again, and let me build myself up to not live it. Like, I don't live in the past. And I think that's also another mistake, that people are like, oh, when I was 20 and I did this, and those were my gray old days. I don't believe in that. I believe the great old days are now. And no matter what your age, because goodness, it's just going to get, hopefully we're going to get older, you know? And so the people that I see that are not feeling irrelevant because they are not the person they were in their 20s or even teens or 30s or whatever, it's about, okay, so maybe I'm not that person anymore, but what can I do with my skills now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How can I make myself relevant now to myself, not in the eyes of anybody else, actually, in my own eyes.
To yourself. Yeah. I absolutely and wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that what I hear a lot of times is when people kind of start to use it as an excuse, right? They're like, well, like my memory is not as good as it used to be, or like, I can't do this, or I'm not as sharp. Any specific advice to those that kind of feel the decline in their own mental health? Any specific advice that can pull themselves up by their bootstraps and, have the courage to attack a new skill?
Yeah, I've actually been there myself. This is not something that men usually know, and sometimes not even women. But menopause brings with it something that also happens in pregnancy, which is mental fog. And by mental fog, I really mean that, I lost this sharpness, this ability to focus and concentrate and just hammer out blog posts or even communicate eloquently. It was hard for a year, almost 2 years. And I was scared. I was scared because I thought, is this how I'm going to live until I die? Is this my new way of being in my brain? It was scary. And it's a hormonal thing that apparently, or I'm not a doctor, so please don't take that, like that's the gospel. You should read an article or talk to a doctor about that. But the point being that I did not let up. I continued to do what worked for me up until now, which was exercise, and continue to write and do the things that I enjoy. And goodness, I was playing, there's a game called Mastermind that I used to play with my father when I was a kid. And my daughter, my 15-year-old, brought it out the other day, and I was like, oh boy, I'm so scared because I might not get it. I'm not going to be so bad at it. And my brain is back. I actually figured it out, and we had a lot of fun playing it. So the point is not to get lost in the anxiety of, oh, my brain is, because what I've found in myself is if I get worried that I have Alzheimer's or that anything is happening, that anxiety actually triggers more memory loss and just not a good attitude in general.
Yeah.
And then you feel afraid, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to go out in my car because maybe I'll forget where I'm going. And, and this is, I think a lot of us live with that fear. Oh, I forgot a word. Does this mean that this is it? Maybe not. Maybe it's just, you forgot a word and that's it. And we keep on going.
So really what I hear you saying is take courage, don't give up, and just use that as a signal to jump in and try to learn a new task, and that this too shall pass is kind of what I hear.
Yeah, and if it doesn't, then go see a doctor. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, I want to see a doctor.
And there's, like you'd mentioned, there's lots of things within our physical health and our our mental health that we can control. And that's why we're here having this conversation, because there's absolutely things that we can control. However, I think we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace for those things that are outside of our control. If we have a diagnosis, or our spouse has a diagnosis with Alzheimer's, then we kind of take that in stride and kind of embrace that as it comes as well. But what I love about this conversation with you, Lorraine, is whether on the physical side or the mental side, there's this sense of, accountability or control that I keep hearing from you in this discussion, which is we control more than we think, right? And we can do more than we think. We can step into uncomfort and conquer more than we actually think. Is that right?
Always. But the thing is that, like, of course, there are things that we can't control. I mean, a lot of it, most things we cannot control. But I love that sense of what can I do to make me, myself, just feel powerful? Because when we overcome, for example, like I enjoy arm balances in yoga, and my personal goal is to do a freestanding without a wall, without anything behind me that will hold me if I fall, by 60. And I can stand on my hands. I can hold it for a couple minutes, but I do not dare actually, which is probably a better word, to do it in the middle of the room because I am afraid of, flipping over and breaking my back. So, but the point of that is that when I accomplish something like standing on my arms or something like that, it makes me feel powerful in other areas of my life. Mm. Because when there is one thing that you can do, by this time in life, I know I can't control other people. I mean, I've had divorces, I've had, life issues, I've had unemployment, recessions, all this, like we all have. But there are certain things that you're like, wow, if I can control this little thing that just depends on me, then I can do anything. Mm. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be an arm balance. It can do whatever you decide that is. It can be taking control of your finances. It can be just absolutely anything.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, feeling empowered in any sense like that is life-changing at any age.
At any age. Now, Lorraine, as we wrap up this conversation, and this has been so enjoyable for me, and hopefully for my audience, I appreciate you taking the time. I would love to ask you more of a personal question that I ask a lot of my guests, which is, for Lorraine specifically, what makes you feel alive? Like, can you think of your life and just say, you know what, I know there's probably a lot of things, but this one thing makes me feel alive, and this is how I stay relevant with those around me. What would you say?
Sure. Sharing with other people, just sharing, oh goodness, I don't know, just overcoming obstacles and sharing how I did it. That makes me feel alive.
Inspiring others by your own journey, your own experience.
That sounds better.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's what I heard.
That was way more eloquent.
Wonderful. Well, Lorraine, thank you so much for joining us here on this podcast. If any of our listeners want to hear a little bit more about you or read some of your stuff or follow you, where can they find you?
Lorraine Ladish. And I know that sounds presumptuous, but I'm the only person in the world with that name. So Lorraine Ladish.
Lorraine Ladish. And also one place where I found you and have become very familiar with some of your work is Viva50.com or Viva Media. All right. So for all of our listeners, we'll put a link to that in the show notes. But thank you again so much for joining us, and good luck in all of your endeavors.
You too. Thank you so much.
Okay. Have a good day. Bye-bye.